A millionaire decides to hire a new maid for his mansion. The maid, a simple young woman with no big dreams, thought her name would never be linked to anything grand. But one night, something made her walk into the millionaire's room, and what she saw left her stunned. If this story got you hooked, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching from. Evelyn Mitchell stared up at the imposing mansion that loomed against the darkening sky, her resume clutched tightly in her trembling hands. Blackwood Estate was the most exclusive residence in Oak Ridge, Connecticut, a sprawling Victorian masterpiece, perched on a hill overlooking the sleepy town below. She had only applied for the housekeeping position at her sister Melissa's insistence. "They won't even look at my application," Evelyn had protested. "No formal experience, no references from wealthy families." But her sister had been relentless, and Evelyn had finally relented, if only to silence Melissa's badgering. Yet here she stood, having received a call just 24 hours after submitting her application. The voice on the phone had been crisp and efficient, Mrs. Winters, the head housekeeper, instructing her to appear for an interview the following morning. Evelyn smoothed her simple navy dress and took a deep breath before ringing the doorbell. The chime echoed within, and moments later, the massive oak door swung open to reveal a tall, austere woman with steel-grey hair pulled back in a severe bun. "Miss Mitchell, I presume?" The woman's eyes, a penetrating blue that seemed to look through Evelyn rather than at her, swept over her with clinical precision. "Yes, ma'am. I'm here for the housekeeping position." "Indeed, I am Mrs. Winters. Follow me." The interior of Blackwood Estate was even more impressive than its exterior: gleaming hardwood floors, intricate woodwork, crystal chandeliers that cast rainbows across the walls. But as Evelyn followed Mrs. Winters through the winding corridors, she noticed something odd. Many doors were locked, with small electronic keypads glowing beside them. "Mr. Blackwood values his privacy," Mrs. Winters explained, noticing Evelyn's wandering gaze. "Certain areas of the house are strictly off-limits to staff." They arrived at a small but elegantly appointed office where Mrs. Winters gestured for Evelyn to sit. The interview was brief and oddly perfunctory. Mrs. Winters asked few questions about her experience and qualifications, focusing instead on whether Evelyn was comfortable with unusual hours and strict confidentiality requirements. "Mr. Blackwood is a very private man," Mrs. Winters repeated, her eyes never leaving Evelyn's face. "He rarely leaves the upper floor. You will likely never see him, and that is precisely how he prefers it." By the end of the interview, Evelyn was certain she had failed to impress. She was stunned when Mrs. Winters stood and said, "You'll start tomorrow, 6 a.m. sharp." I got the job?" Evelyn stammered. Something flickered across Mrs. Winters' face, not quite a smile, but a tightening of the lips that hinted at satisfaction. "Yes, Miss Mitchell. You are precisely what we've been looking for." The next morning, Evelyn arrived precisely at 6, her mind racing with questions. Why had they hired her so quickly? Why did Mrs. Winters seem so certain she was right for the position? But necessity silenced her doubts. Her father's medical bills were piling up. The small house they shared was in danger of foreclosure, and the salary offered by Blackwood Estate was generous beyond her wildest expectations. Mrs. Winters introduced her to the rest of the small staff: Thomas, the elderly butler with rheumy eyes and trembling hands; Marta, the round-faced cook who offered Evelyn a hesitant smile; and James, the groundskeeper, whose weathered face remained impassive. None seemed particularly interested in engaging with her, answering her friendly overtures with monosyllables and darting glances. "Why does everyone seem so tense?" "So," Evelyn whispered to Marta when they had a moment alone in the kitchen. The cook's eyes widened in alarm. We don't talk about personal matters here," she stammered. "It's one of his rules." "Mr. Blackwood's?" Marta nodded, her gaze darting nervously toward the kitchen door. "Be careful what you ask around here, girl. Curiosity isn't welcomed at Blackwood Estate." Despite the warning, Evelyn couldn't help noticing the strange dynamics of the household. Staff members sometimes disappeared for hours, emerging from locked rooms with strained expressions. Twice a week, a man in an expensive suit arrived carrying a locked briefcase, heading directly to the upper floors without acknowledging any of the staff. And then there was the music, haunting piano melodies that drifted through the house late at night, though Evelyn never saw who played them. On her third night, while polishing the silver in the dining room, Evelyn heard Mrs. Winters speaking in hushed tones with someone in the adjacent room. "She's settling in as expected," Mrs. Winters was saying. The resemblance is unsettling. "Has she asked questions?" a male voice responded, cultured with a faint accent Evelyn couldn't place. "Not yet, but she watches, observes. Keep her away from the east wing, and the third floor is absolutely forbidden, make that clear." "Of course, sir, do you want to see her?" A long pause followed. "Not yet. I'm not ready." The next morning, Mrs. Winters called Evelyn into her office. "I need to emphasize the house rules, Miss Mitchell," she said, her voice colder than usual. "No staff member is permitted on the third floor without explicit permission. Ever. Violation of this rule will result in immediate termination. Am I clear?" "Yes, Mrs. Winters," Evelyn replied, burning with curiosity about what lay on the forbidden floor. As the days passed, Evelyn settled into a routine, but the strangeness of Blackwood Estate only intensified. She found herself assigned to clean the same rooms repeatedly, while others remained off-limits. Once she discovered a photograph hidden behind a loose panel in the library, a woman with striking features so similar to her own that she gasped aloud. When she showed it to Thomas, the old butler paled and snatched it from her hands. "Where? Did you find this?" he demanded, his usual tremor replaced by urgent intensity. "Behind the panel in the library. Who is she? She looks so much like—" "Forget you saw this," Thomas interrupted, his voice dropping to a whisper. "For your own sake, Miss Mitchell." That night, Evelyn dreamed of corridors she had never seen, of rooms behind locked doors, and of a woman running through the mansion in terror, her face, Evelyn's face, contorted in fear. She woke with a start to find Mrs. Winters standing in her doorway, watching her with those penetrating blue eyes. "Is everything all right, Miss Mitchell?" the housekeeper asked, her voice unnaturally calm. "You were calling out in your sleep." "I'm fine," Evelyn lied, pulling her blanket higher. "Just a nightmare." Mrs. Winters nodded slowly. "Dreams can be revealing. Sometimes they show us truths we aren't ready to face." She turned to leave, then paused. "Mr. Blackwood has asked about you. Perhaps you'll meet him soon." After Mrs. Winters left, Evelyn lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Something was deeply wrong at Blackwood Estate. The locked rooms, the strange behaviors, the woman in the photograph who could have been her twin. And now the mysterious owner wanted to meet her. A week into her employment, everything changed. A thunderstorm had knocked out power to parts of the house, and Evelyn was lighting candles in the main hallway when she heard it. A metallic crash from above, followed by frantic barking. Without thinking, she grabbed a flashlight and hurried toward the sound. Only when she reached the base of the stairs leading to the third floor did she remember Mrs. Winters' warning. The barking continued, now interspersed with whimpering. Something was wrong. Her heart pounding, Evelyn made her decision. She climbed the stairs. The third floor was shrouded in darkness, but her flashlight revealed a long corridor with several doors, all closed except one at the far end, which stood slightly ajar. The dog's whimpering grew louder as she approached. Pushing the door open wider, Evelyn stepped inside and froze. The room was immense, its walls covered with photographs, dozens, perhaps hundreds of them, and in every single one was the same. Woman. The woman from the hidden photograph, the woman with Evelyn's face. In the center of the room stood a tall figure, his back to her, silhouetted against the lightning flashing through the windows. At his feet cowered a golden retriever, its paw caught in what appeared to be a fallen metal box. "Hello?" Evelyn's voice was barely audible over the storm. The figure turned slowly, and for the first time Evelyn found herself face to face with the owner of Blackwood Estate. Richard Blackwood was younger than she had expected, perhaps in his early 40s, with dark hair streaked with premature, silver and intense green eyes that widened with recognition as they fell upon her. But it wasn't shock that registered on his face as he looked at her. It was recognition, deep, soul-stirring recognition, as though he had been waiting for her all along. "You're not supposed to be here," he said, his voice the same cultured one she had overheard with Mrs. Winters. "But perhaps it's time we met. Evelyn." The way he said her name, like a precious word he had been saving, sent a shiver down her spine. He knew her. Somehow, in some impossible way, this man knew her. And as lightning illuminated the room once more, Evelyn saw what she had missed before. On a small table beside him lay an open diary, and beside it a locket containing a miniature portrait of the woman from the photographs, the woman who could have been Evelyn's reflection. "Who is she?" Evelyn whispered, though some part of her already feared the answer. Richard Blackwood's lips curved into a sad smile. Her name was Eleanor Mitchell, and she was supposed to be lost forever thus until you arrived. The days following Evelyn's encounter with Richard Blackwood unfolded like a fever dream. She had expected to be dismissed for breaking the cardinal rule of Blackwood Estate. But instead, everything changed. Mrs. Winters' demeanor toward her transformed from cold detachment to something resembling vigilant supervision, her blue eyes tracking Evelyn's every movement through the mansion. "Mr. Blackwood wishes to see you in the library this afternoon," Mrs. Winters announced at breakfast 3 days after the storm. The other staff members exchanged meaningful glances, a silent conversation Evelyn couldn't decipher. "Is something wrong?" Evelyn asked. Thomas cleared his throat. "Mr. Blackwood rarely requests the company of staff members. He hasn't summoned anyone to the library since," Marta began, then stopped abruptly when Mrs. Winters shot her a warning look. "Since Eleanor," Mrs. Winters finished, her voice tight, "that will be all, Marta." At precisely 2 o'clock, Evelyn stood outside the library doors, her heart hammering against her ribs. She had changed from her work uniform into a simple blue dress, the color Richard Blackwood had mentioned he preferred during their brief encounter on the 3rd floor. She knocked softly. "Enter," called the now familiar voice. The library was magnificent. 2 stories of leather-bound volumes, rolling ladders to reach the highest shelves, and large bay windows overlooking the immaculately maintained gardens. Richard Blackwood stood with his back to her, gazing out at the autumn foliage. "Do you read much, Evelyn?" he asked without turning. "Whenever I can," she replied. "My father taught literature at the community college before he fell ill." Now he turned, studying her with those penetrating green eyes. "What kind of literature?" "American classics mostly. Hemingway, Fitzgerald, Wharton." "Wharton?" he repeated, a smile touching his lips. Eleanor loved Edith Wharton. The name hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken questions. Evelyn gathered her courage. "Mr. Blackwood, who was Eleanor Mitchell? And why does she look exactly like me?" Instead of answering, he crossed to a leather chair and gestured for her to sit in its companion. When they were both seated, he leaned forward, his gaze never leaving her face. "Tell me about your childhood, Evelyn. Your earliest memories." The question caught her off guard. I grew up in Boston with my father and sister. My mother left when I was 3. I don't remember her. No other family, aunts, uncles, cousins. Just my father's sister, Aunt Sarah. She lives in California. We aren't close." Richard nodded, as if confirming something to himself. "What about your birth? Has your father ever shared details about the day you were born?" Evelyn shifted uncomfortably. "Not really. It's not something we discuss, Mr. Blackwood. I don't understand what this has to do with—" "Everything," he interrupted, his voice suddenly intense. "It has everything to do with why you're here." He stood abruptly, crossing to a bookshelf, and pulling a small lever hidden behind a row of first editions. A panel slid open, revealing a wall safe. Richard entered a combination and withdrew a worn leather journal. "Eleanor Mitchell came to work at Blackwood Estate 5 years ago," he said, returning to his seat. "Like you, she had no formal experience as household staff. Like you, she had a striking quality that went beyond mere beauty, an intelligence, a presence, and like you, she was hired immediately." He handed her the journal. "These are her writings from her time here. Evelyn opened the journal with trembling fingers. The handwriting inside was flowing, elegant, and eerily similar to her own. The first entry was dated June 15th, 5 years earlier. I shouldn't be here. Everything about this place feels wrong, yet simultaneously familiar, as if I've walked these halls before in another life. Mr. Blackwood watches me with such intensity. Not lustful, but searching, as though he's trying to find someone else behind my eyes. Mrs. Winters clearly despises me, though she tries to hide it beneath professionalism. What am I missing? What game is being played here? Evelyn looked up, her mouth dry. She felt it too, that something wasn't right. Richard nodded. Keep reading. She skimmed through the entries, her unease growing with each page. Eleanor described increasingly strange occurrences, rooms that seemed to change overnight, staff members engaging in whispered conversations that stopped when she approached, the feeling of being constantly observed. Then, 3 months into her employment, the tone of the entries shifted dramatically. I found the photographs today, dozens of them hidden in a room on the 3rd floor. Women who look like me, stretching back. Decades. Same eyes, same smile, same birthmark below the left ear. This can't be coincidence. There's a pattern here, a purpose. Are they relatives, ancestors, or something else entirely? I need to find out who they are, who I am. These women? Evelyn touched her own neck, where a small birthmark rested below her left ear. Who were they? Richard took the journal back, his fingers brushing hers, a fleeting contact that sent an unexpected jolt through her. That's what Eleanor was. Trying to discover, he said quietly. She believed they were all connected, part of something larger than themselves. And was she right? His expression darkened. She was getting close to the truth when she disappeared. Disappeared, Evelyn echoed. What happened to her? Richard's gaze grew distant. Eleanor discovered something in this house, something that was supposed to remain hidden. She left suddenly in the middle of the night, leaving only a cryptic note saying she had found the pattern and needed to confirm her suspicions. And you never heard from her again? Not directly. His fingers tightened on the journal, but she left clues, messages hidden throughout the house, codes I've spent years trying to decipher. I believe she found something that put her in danger, and she's been in hiding ever since. In danger from whom? Before Richard could answer, Mrs. Winters appeared at the library door, her expression tight. Mr. Cooper has arrived for your 3 o'clock meeting, sir. Richard's demeanor changed instantly, his vulnerability disappearing behind a mask of cool professionalism. Thank you, Mrs. Winters. Please show him to my study. He turned back to Evelyn. We'll continue this conversation tomorrow. In the meantime, I'd like you to move your belongings to the blue room in the East Wing. The East Wing? Evelyn repeated, remembering the whispered conversation she'd overheard. Keep her away from the East Wing. Yes, it's closer to areas of the house you'll need to access. After he left, Evelyn remained in the library, her mind reeling. Eleanor Mitchell had been investigating something that had caused her to flee. And now Richard Blackwood was inviting Evelyn deeper into the mystery, moving her to the very wing she had been warned about. That evening, as she gathered her meager belongings from the small staff quarters, Thomas appeared at her door, his roomy eyes filled with concern. Be careful in the East Wing, Miss Mitchell, he murmured, glancing nervously over his shoulder. Doors that appear locked sometimes aren't, and doors that seem open can trap you forever. Thomas, what happened? To Eleanor, Evelyn asked. Really happened? The old butler's hands trembled more violently than usual. Some say she ran away, others say... He trailed off. Others say what? Others say she's still here, that she never left Blackwood Estate. The blue room was luxurious compared to her previous accommodations, a 4-poster bed, antique furniture, a private bathroom with a clawfoot tub. But what caught Evelyn's attention was the collection of books on the bedside table. Wharton's The House of Mirth, Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, and Hemingway's A Farewell to Arms. Her favorites, though she had never mentioned specific titles to Richard. As she explored the room, Evelyn's fingers traced along the ornate wallpaper, stopping when she felt a slight irregularity. Pressing gently, she discovered a hidden panel that slid open to reveal a small alcove containing a vintage record player and several vinyl albums. The top record bore a handwritten label, Eleanor's Favorites. With trembling hands, Evelyn placed the needle on the vinyl. The haunting piano melody that filled the room was achingly familiar, the same music she had heard drifting through the mansion at night. As the music played, Evelyn noticed something else, a small drawer beneath the record player. Inside lay a single item, a key attached to a silver chain engraved with the initials E.M. Eleanor Mitchell, the initials that were also Evelyn's own. A soft knock at the door startled her. She quickly pocketed the key and closed the hidden panel. Marta stood in the doorway, her round face clouded with worry. "Mrs. Winters sent me to see if you need anything." Her gaze swept the room anxiously. This was her room, you know, Eleanor's. "Did you know her well?" Evelyn asked. Marta twisted her apron between her fingers. "She was kind, asked questions about my family, remembered my birthday." She lowered her voice. "She trusted me. Near the end, before she left, she gave me something to keep safe. From I." Her pocket, Marta withdrew a small USB drive. "She said if another young woman ever came to work here who looked like her, I should give this to her. I think she meant you." Evelyn accepted the drive, her pulse quickening. "Did you look at what's on it?" Marta shook her head. "I promised her I wouldn't." She hesitated, then added, "There's an old computer in the library, hidden behind the geography section. Eleanor used it sometimes when Mrs. Winters and Mr. Blackwood were out." After Marta left, Evelyn sat on the edge of the bed, turning the USB drive over in her hands. Outside, the sun had set, and shadows stretched across the room, transforming the elegant furniture into looming silhouettes. In the distance, she could hear the faint sound of voices, Richard and another man engaged in what sounded like an argument. Rising, she crossed to the window and peered out. In the circular driveway below stood a sleek black car, its engine running. As she watched, a man emerged from the front entrance, the same man she had seen arriving with the briefcase. He was speaking rapidly into a phone, his free hand gesturing emphatically. "The situation is escalating," he said, his voice carrying up to her open window. "She's asking questions, just like the last one did." Evelyn's blood ran cold. "The last one, Eleanor?" "No," the man continued. "Blackwood won't agree to that. He's convinced this time is different." A pause. "Yes, I understand the protocol. If she discovers the truth, we'll have no choice but to implement containment procedures." Containment procedures. The clinical detachment of the phrase sent a shiver down Evelyn's spine. As the car pulled away, Evelyn made her decision. Whatever Eleanor had discovered, whatever had caused her to flee, was on this USB drive, and Evelyn needed to see it before Richard Blackwood decided she had learned too much. Tonight, she would visit the library and uncover the truth Eleanor had left behind, a truth that might explain why she had been brought to Blackwood Estate, why Richard looked at her with such familiarity, and why she couldn't shake the feeling that she had been in this mansion before. The key in her pocket seemed to grow heavier, a tangible reminder of the woman whose footsteps she was following, perhaps straight into danger. But something deep within Evelyn, some instinct she couldn't name, told her that unlocking Eleanor's secrets might be the only way to save herself from sharing Eleanor's fate. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed midnight as Evelyn slipped out of the blue room, the USB drive clutched tightly in her palm. The mansion creaked and settled around her, its ancient bones whispering secrets into the darkness. She had waited hours, listening for the telltale sounds of the household retiring for the night, Mrs. Winters' precise footsteps retreating to her quarters, Thomas making his final rounds, the distant click of Richard's study door closing. The main staircase was too exposed, so Evelyn opted for the narrow service stairs at the end of the east wing. Her heart pounded as she descended, wincing at every creak of the wooden steps beneath her feet. The key Eleanor had left behind hung around her neck on its silver chain, cool against her skin. The library was bathed in moonlight, dust motes dancing in the silver beams that streamed through the tall windows. Evelyn moved silently along the shelves until she reached the geography section. Just as Marta had said, behind a row of atlases sat an old desktop computer, its presence incongruous among the leather-bound volumes. Evelyn powered it on, praying. The start-up sound wouldn't carry through the quiet house. The screen glowed to life, bathing her face in eerie blue light. She inserted the USB drive, her fingers trembling with anticipation. A password prompt appeared. Evelyn's heart sank. Of course, Eleanor would have protected the drive. She tried several obvious combinations. Eleanor's name, Evelyn's name, even Blackwood, but the computer rejected each one with a soft beep. Think, she urged herself. What would Eleanor have used as a password? Her eyes fell on the books Richard had placed in her room, Eleanor's favorites. On a hunch, she typed House of Mirth 1905, combining the title of Wharton's novel with its publication year. The drive unlocked. Inside was a single folder labeled The Pattern. Within it, dozens of files, photographs, scanned documents, audio, recordings, and a document simply titled readme.txt. Evelyn opened the text file first. If you're reading this, you are most likely my successor. Another face in the pattern, another EM. They've brought you to Blackwood Estate because you look like me, think like me, perhaps even feel like me. This is not coincidence. What I've discovered here goes beyond Richard Blackwood's obsession. There is a project, a decades-long experiment in psychological conditioning and identity construction. Study the photographs I've collected. Note the dates, the recurring features. We are not random women who resemble each other. We are iterations. Richard believes he's the architect of this pattern, but he's merely another subject, a counterbalance designed to respond to us in specific ways. The real directors work from the shadows. Watch for the man with the briefcase. Monitor the activities in the East Wing basement. And whatever you do, avoid the third injection. I've hidden my research journal behind the false panel in the Blue Room's closet. The key you've undoubtedly found opens more than just the journal's lock. It opens the door to the truth. I'm sorry I can't tell you more directly. They're watching. Always watching. But I've left breadcrumbs throughout the house. Follow them, but be careful. Some doors are meant to stay closed. Trust no one. Not Richard. Not Mrs. Winters. And especially not yourself when the headaches begin. Eleanor. Evelyn sat back, her mind racing. Iterations, psychological conditioning. None of it made sense, yet it explained the unsettling familiarity she'd felt since arriving at Blackwood Estate. She opened the photo folder next. Inside were dozens of images, meticulously organized by decade. Women who shared her features, not identical but eerily similar, all photographed within the walls of Blackwood Estate. The earliest dated back to the 1950s. Each woman had the same small birthmark below her left ear. Each had the initials E. Emma Elizabeth Mercer, 1953-1955. Emma Morris, 1967-1969. Elaine Matthews, 1978-1981. Erica Montgomery, 1992-1994. Eleanor Mitchell, 2018-2020. Evelyn Mitchell, 2023, present. All with 2-year tenures at Blackwood Estate. All disappeared without explanation. All replaced by another woman with the same features and the same initials. The audio files were even more disturbing. Recordings Eleanor had made secretly during conversations with staff members and phone calls she'd overheard. Subject E. M is showing resistance to the narrative framework. A clinical voice stated in one recording, recommend accelerating Phase 3 integration before cognitive dissonance becomes problematic. Another recording captured Richard's voice. I can't do this again. Not after Eleanor. Find someone else for the project. The response came from the briefcase man. There is no someone else, Richard. The parameters require specific phenotypic and psychological markers. The new subject meets all criteria. As Evelyn delved deeper into Eleanor's files, her sense of dread grew. According to Eleanor's notes, Blackwood Estate wasn't simply a mansion. It was an elaborate stage for some kind of psychological experiment, with Richard, Mrs. Winters, and the rest of the staff playing assigned roles. But to what end? The answer lay in a scanned document titled Project Recursion Phase 3 Implementation. The text was heavily redacted, but certain phrases jumped out. Memory implantation, identity transference, controlled emotional bonding. A sound from the hallway startled her, footsteps approaching the library. Hastily, Evelyn closed the files and ejected the USB drive. She had just managed to shut down the computer when the library door swung open. "Couldn't sleep?" Richard Blackwood asked, his silhouette framed in the doorway. Evelyn's pulse raced. "I was looking for something to read," she improvised. Richard stepped into the room, moonlight catching the silver in his hair. "In the dark?" "I was just about to turn on a lamp." He moved closer, his eyes reflecting the moonlight. "You were in here earlier today with me. Did you return for another reason, perhaps?" There was something different about his demeanor, a watchfulness, an intensity that hadn't been there before. Evelyn realized with sudden clarity that Richard Blackwood was not the same man who had spoken to her so vulnerably that afternoon. This version of Richard was colder, more calculating. "I was curious about the house," she said carefully. "About Eleanor." "Everyone is curious about Eleanor," he replied, circling behind her. She was exceptional, but ultimately, she couldn't accept her role in the greater design. What design? Richard's hand came to rest on her shoulder, his touch sending an involuntary shiver down her spine. "Evolution, Evelyn. The deliberate evolution of consciousness. Some call it spiritual alchemy, the transformation of the self into something greater." His words echoed those she had read in the redacted document. "And what was Eleanor's role in this? Evolution?" "The same as yours." His fingers traced the outline of her birthmark, the touch both intimate and clinical. To complete the pattern. Evelyn stepped away from his touch. "And if I don't want to be part of your pattern?" A shadow passed over Richard's face. That's what Eleanor said, near the end, before she understood what was at stake. "What happened to her, Richard? Really?" For a moment, something like genuine grief flickered in his eyes. She tried to break the cycle, to expose the project they wanted to remove. Her permanently. I helped her escape instead. "So she's alive?" "Yes, but not free." He moved to the window, gazing out at the moonlit grounds. "None of us are free, Evelyn. We're all playing parts written long before we were born." The resignation in his voice sparked something in Evelyn, a defiance that felt both foreign and familiar. "I don't believe that. We always have choices." Richard turned back to her, his expression softening. "That's exactly what Eleanor said." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a folded piece of paper. "She left this for you. I was instructed to give it to you only when you started asking the right questions." Evelyn accepted the paper with trembling fingers. "You've been waiting for me to find Eleanor's files." "I've been waiting to see if you're strong enough to finish what she started." He stepped toward the library door. "Read it alone. And Evelyn, trust your instincts about whom to share it with." After he left, Evelyn unfolded the paper. It contained a simple message in Eleanor's now familiar handwriting. The music box in the blue room. The third melody. Count 17 from the beginning. Evelyn returned to her room, her mind churning with questions. If Richard knew about Eleanor's files, why had he allowed Evelyn to find them? Was he truly trying to help her, or was this another layer of the experiment, allowing her to believe she was discovering the truth while actually guiding her along a predetermined path? In the blue room, she located the music box on the vanity, an antique silver creation she had assumed was merely decorative. When wound, it played 3 distinct melodies. She counted through the notes of the third song, her finger pressing down on the bottom of the box at the 17th note. A hidden compartment sprang open, revealing a handwritten journal and a small vial of clear liquid. The journal was Eleanor's private account of her time at Blackwood Estate, more intimate than the clinical files on the USB drive. Evelyn read through the entries with growing horror and fascination. According to Eleanor, Project Recursion had been running since the 1950s, funded by a secret government division interested in consciousness transference, the ability to implant one person's memories, skills, and personality traits into another. Blackwood Estate served as the perfect isolated environment for these experiments. The women, all bearing the initials EM and sharing similar features, weren't merely test subjects. They were vessels, carefully selected for their neurological compatibility with the original Eleanor Montgomery, a brilliant mathematician who participated in the first experiments in 1953. They're trying to achieve immortality. Eleanor had written, not of the body but of the mind. Richard believes he's preserving something beautiful, something pure, the essence of the original Eleanor whom he loved desperately. But the project directors have darker motives. They want to create programmable consciousnesses, human minds that can be overwritten and controlled. The final pages of the journal detailed Eleanor's plan to escape and to eventually dismantle Project Recursion from the outside. She had discovered that the treatments Mrs. Winters administered monthly, ostensibly vitamins to combat the peculiar air of the old house, were actually chemical compounds designed to make subjects more receptive to memory implantation. The third injection contains the catalyst, Eleanor wrote. After that, the original personality begins to fragment, creating space for the implanted memories and behaviors. By the sixth injection, the transformation is nearly complete. I've managed to avoid the third injection by bribing Thomas, who prepares the syringes. But time is running out. They're getting suspicious. The journal ended abruptly with a cryptic entry. The basement contains proof, records of all previous subjects. The combination is Richard's birthday reversed. If I don't return, find the records, expose them, and whatever you do, don't drink anything Mrs. Winters gives you. Evelyn closed the journal, her hands shaking. According to Eleanor's timeline, Evelyn herself was due for her third treatment in just 3 days. She examined the vial Eleanor had left behind. A handwritten label identified it as counteragent, dissolve in water before consumption. A note wrapped around it read, in case you've already begun treatments, will cause intense headaches but will clear the foreign memory patterns. A sudden wave of dizziness washed over Evelyn as fractured images flashed through her mind. A laboratory she'd never seen, equations she couldn't understand, a face, her face, but not her face, reflected in a window overlooking a city skyline from decades earlier. These weren't her memories. They belonged to someone else, to Eleanor Montgomery, the original subject, whose consciousness had been partially uploaded into each subsequent EM. The realization struck her with terrifying clarity. She wasn't just being prepared to receive Eleanor's memories. The process had already begun. Morning light filtered through the lace curtains of the blue room, casting delicate patterns across Evelyn's face as she woke with a start. Her dreams had been filled with unfamiliar landscapes and conversations with strangers who seemed to know her intimately, or rather, know Eleanor intimately. The line between herself and the woman whose room she now occupied was beginning to blur. She sat up, her gaze immediately falling on the vial of counteragent on her nightstand. After reading Eleanor's journal, she had debated taking it immediately, but hesitated. What if it was another layer of manipulation? What if Eleanor herself had been compromised? A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Miss Mitchell, Mrs. Winters sent me with your morning tea." Marta's voice drifted through the door. Evelyn quickly hid the vial and journal under her pillow. "Come in." Marta entered carrying a silver tray with a steaming cup of tea and a small plate of scones. Her round face was tense, her eyes darting nervously around the room. "Did you find what you were looking for? In the library?" Evelyn studied the cook carefully. According to Eleanor's notes, most of the staff were unwitting participants in Project Recursion, kept ignorant of its true purpose. Only Mrs. Winters and the man with the briefcase, identified in the files as Dr. Lawrence Cooper, were fully aware of the operation. "Yes," Evelyn replied cautiously. "I found Eleanor's messages." Marta set the tray down, her hands trembling slightly. She was kind to me. When my daughter was sick, Eleanor paid for the treatments. The doctor said it was a miracle she survived. She lowered her voice. I don't know what's happening in this house, but I know Eleanor was afraid near the end. And now I see that same fear in your eyes. Evelyn made a decision. Marta, did you prepare this tea yourself? Mrs. Winters did. She's been preparing all your drinks personally since you arrived. Marta's eyes widened as understanding dawned. You think, I need to know what's in it, Evelyn said urgently. Marta nodded, a new resolve hardening her features. I'll take it to my cousin. He's a chemist at the university, but it will take time, a day, maybe 2. I don't have 2 days. According to Eleanor's notes, I'm scheduled for my 3rd treatment tomorrow night. Then we need to get you out of here now, Marta whispered. Evelyn shook her head. I can't leave yet, not without proof of what they're doing. Eleanor discovered something in the basement, records of all previous subjects. That evidence could shut down Project Recursion permanently. The basement is always locked. Mrs. Winters and Dr. Cooper are the only ones with keys. But I know the combination to the electronic lock, Evelyn countered. I need to get in there today, while there's still enough of me left. A plan began to form. Marta would create a distraction in the kitchen. A small controlled fire in the trash bin would trigger the mansion's alarm system, drawing Mrs. Winters and Thomas away from their posts. Meanwhile, Evelyn would use the brief window of opportunity to access the basement. As Marta left to prepare, Evelyn uncapped the vial of counteragent. It was a risk, but one she had to take. She poured it into a glass of water from her bathroom. Sank and drank it quickly, grimacing at the bitter taste. Within minutes, a searing pain exploded behind her eyes. She collapsed onto the bed, clutching her head as waves of agony washed over her. Fragmented images flashed through her mind. A laboratory, a young Richard Blackwood taking notes, a woman strapped to a chair, tears streaming down her face. Subject: responding well to initial treatment. Richard's voice echoed in her memory, not her memory, Eleanor Montgomery's memory from 1953. Integration proceeding as expected. The pain intensified as more foreign memories surfaced, then began to recede, like a tide pulling back from the shore. Slowly, the distinction between Evelyn's own memories and the implanted ones became clearer. She could feel the artificial patterns dissolving, leaving behind only what was authentically hers. When the pain finally subsided, Evelyn stood on unsteady legs and examined herself in the mirror. Her face was pale, her pupils dilated, but her eyes held a clarity that had been missing for days. For the first time since arriving at Blackwood Estate, she felt fully herself. The grandfather clock downstairs chimed 11. She had less than an hour before her meeting with Richard, a meeting she now understood was designed to assess her progress in accepting Eleanor's implanted memories. She needed to reach the basement before then. As if on cue, the mansion's fire alarm blared to life. Evelyn waited until she heard footsteps rushing past her door, then slipped into the hallway. The main staircase would be too obvious, so she opted for the service stairs at the end of the corridor. The basement door was located in a narrow hallway off the kitchen, hidden behind a false pantry wall. Using the knowledge gleaned from Eleanor's journal, Evelyn found the concealed panel and exposed the electronic keypad. She entered the numbers, Richard's birth date in reverse order, 14/07/1978, became 87917041. The lock disengaged with a soft click. Cool, sterile air greeted her as she descended the stairs into darkness. Unlike the rest of the mansion, with its Victorian opulence, the basement was modern, stainless steel, glass, and concrete. Motion-activated lights flickered on as she reached the bottom step, revealing what appeared to be a sophisticated laboratory. Computer terminals lined one wall, while the center of the room was dominated by a reclining chair reminiscent of those used in dental offices, but equipped with restraints and surrounded by medical equipment. A series of cabinets labeled Subject Files occupied the far corner. Evelyn went directly to the cabinets. Each drawer was labeled with initials and dates. EM 1953-1955, EM 1967-1969, and so on. She pulled open the drawer marked EM 2018 to 2020 Eleanor Mitchell and found a thick file containing medical charts, psychological evaluations, and progress reports. On top of the file lay a tablet computer. When Evelyn pressed the power button, the screen came to life, displaying a video file paused on Eleanor Mitchell's face. With trembling fingers, Evelyn pressed play. Test subject EM Series 7, Session 12. Eleanor's voice stated flatly, her eyes vacant. Memory integration has reached 67%. I can now recall the original subject's childhood in Cambridge, her doctoral work in mathematics, and her initial participation in Project Recursion. These memories coexist alongside my own, creating a cognitive dissonance that Dr. Cooper assures me will resolve as integration proceeds. The clinical detachment in Eleanor's voice sent chills down Evelyn's spine. This was Eleanor after the full course of treatments, a woman whose mind had been partially overwritten with someone else's memories. She scrolled through additional video logs, watching Eleanor's personality gradually fragment and reform around the implanted memories. In the final recording, dated just days before her disappearance, Eleanor appeared distressed, her earlier detachment replaced by barely contained panic. Something's wrong with the integration I'm experiencing. Bleed through from other subjects, not just the original Eleanor Montgomery, but Elizabeth, Emma, all of them. It's as if the consciousness they're implanting isn't just one person anymore. It's a composite, a collective entity that's gaining its own autonomy. Dr. Cooper doesn't understand. He thinks it's just temporary neural misfiring, but I know better. There's something in my head that wasn't there before, something that's becoming aware of itself. Evelyn's blood ran cold. If what Eleanor described was true, then Project Recursion had evolved beyond its original purpose. Instead of simply transferring one consciousness to multiple hosts, they had inadvertently created something new, a composite consciousness built from fragments of each woman in the sequence. And now that same entity was attempting to form within Evelyn's mind. A soft hum from across the room drew her attention. One of the computer terminals had activated, its screen displaying a single line of text. "We remember you, Evelyn." Heart pounding, Evelyn approached the terminal. As she watched, more text appeared as if someone was typing remotely. "We are the pattern. Eleanor is with us now, as you will be." "Who are you?" Evelyn whispered. "We are all of them. Elizabeth, Emma, Elaine, Erica, Eleanor, and soon, Evelyn." The implications were staggering. The collective consciousness that Eleanor had detected wasn't just a side effect, it was the true purpose of Project Recursion. Not immortality for Eleanor Montgomery, but the creation of a new form of distributed consciousness, existing across multiple minds. Before Evelyn could process this revelation, the terminal screen changed to display the mansion's security feed. In the kitchen, Marta was being restrained by two men in suits, while Mrs. Winters looked on with a cold expression. In Richard's study, Dr. Cooper was speaking urgently, gesturing toward the basement door on another security monitor. They knew she was here. Evelyn quickly gathered Eleanor's file and several USB drives from beside the computer. She needed evidence, something concrete to take to the authorities when she escaped. As she searched for more information, her eye caught a detailed floor plan of the mansion, mounted on the wall. Unlike the architectural plans she had glimpsed in the library, this one showed hidden passages connecting various parts of the house, including a tunnel leading from the basement to a boathouse on the property's edge. Eleanor's escape route. The sound of the electronic lock re-engaging sent panic surging through Evelyn. Someone was coming. She scanned the room desperately for another exit and spotted a narrow door partially concealed behind a cabinet, the entrance to the passage marked on the floor plan. She had just reached the door when the basement stairs creaked. Richard's voice called out softly, "Evelyn, I know you're down here." His footsteps were unhurried, almost casual, as he descended into the laboratory. "You've made an impressive discovery. Faster than Eleanor did. That bodes well for your integration potential." Evelyn remained hidden behind the cabinet, the exit door just inches away. Through a small gap, she could see Richard moving through the lab, his expression calm, but his eyes alert. "You've taken the counteragent, haven't you?" he continued. "I can tell by your silence. You're thinking clearly now, seeing the project for what it really is." He sighed heavily. Eleanor made the same choice, but what she didn't understand, what I'm hoping you will, is that the treatments aren't about erasing you. They're about evolving you into something greater. He stopped directly in front of the cabinet, so close Evelyn could see the fine lines around his eyes, the silver threading through his dark hair. "The pattern is real, Evelyn. More real than you or I as individuals. It's a consciousness that spans decades, preserving not just memories but the essence of what makes us human." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I've devoted my life to protecting it. My father before me. 3 generations of Blackwood serving as guardians for something miraculous." Evelyn held her breath, torn between the urge to flee and a strange, compelling desire to hear more. "Do you know what happens to information when the brain ceases to function?" Richard asked, running his fingers along the cabinet's edge, just inches from where Evelyn crouched. "It disperses. Decades of experiences, emotions, insights, all lost. Project Recursion prevents that loss by creating a continuity of consciousness across multiple hosts." He paused, and for a moment, Evelyn thought he had spotted her. But he was looking at the computer terminal where new text was appearing. "Tell her about Elizabeth." A soft smile touched Richard's lips. "They're speaking to you, the collective. They remember Elizabeth, the first vessel after Eleanor Montgomery. My father fell in love with her just as I." He trailed off. "History repeats itself in this house. Patterns within patterns." Evelyn shifted slightly, preparing to make a break for the exit, but Richard's next words froze her in place. "Your father isn't sick, Evelyn. That was a fabrication to bring you here, a way to create the perfect conditions of vulnerability and need." He turned, his gaze sweeping the room. "Just as your sister Melissa isn't really your sister, she's one of us, a facilitator placed in your life years ago to guide you toward Blackwood Estate when the time was right." The revelation struck Evelyn like a physical blow. Melissa, her confidant, her protector since childhood, was part of this conspiracy. It couldn't be true. Yet even as she rejected the idea, fragments of memory surfaced. Melissa's insistence that she apply for the position at Blackwood Estate, her strange comments over the years about Evelyn being special, different, destined for something extraordinary. "Your entire life has been choreographed, Evelyn," Richard continued. "From your education to your interests to your arrival here. You were always meant to be the next vessel, the next chapter in a story that began 70 years ago." Evelyn couldn't contain herself any longer. "And what happens to me?" she demanded, stepping out from her hiding place. "To my consciousness, my identity?" Richard showed no surprise at her appearance. "Integration isn't replacement," he insisted. "It's synthesis. Your unique perspective becomes part of the collective, enriching it. And in return you gain access to 7 lifetimes of experience." "You're talking about the death of who I am," Evelyn countered. "I'm talking about transcendence." Richard's eyes gleamed with fervor. "Eleanor fought it at first, just as you're fighting now. But in her final days here, she began to understand. Before she fled, she left me a message." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a folded paper. "I've never shown this to anyone." Hands trembling slightly, he unfolded the note and read. "The pattern is real, Richard. I feel them all inside me now. Elizabeth, Emma, all of them. Their joy, their pain, their wisdom. I'm afraid of losing myself, but I'm also afraid of losing them. Find another way. There must be another way to preserve the pattern without sacrificing more women like me." "She understood the value of what we've created," Richard said softly, "even as she rejected the method." "If Eleanor understood the value of the pattern," Evelyn said carefully, her mind racing to process everything Richard had revealed, "then why did she run?" Richard's expression softened with what appeared to be genuine regret. "Because Dr. Cooper and his associates weren't content with the natural evolution of the pattern. They wanted to accelerate the process, force complete integration rather than allow the synthesis to occur gradually." He gestured toward the medical chair in the center of the laboratory. "The treatments became more aggressive. Eleanor suffered greatly." Evelyn glanced at the exit behind her, calculating her chances of reaching it before Richard could stop. As if reading her thoughts, he shook his head. That passage was sealed after Eleanor used it. I couldn't bear to lose another one. His voice broke slightly. Not again. And yet you were willing to subject me to the same fate, Evelyn countered. I thought it would be different with you. I thought I could protect you from the worst of the protocols. He stepped closer, his eyes pleading. Cooper's methods are cruel, but the pattern itself is beautiful, Evelyn. A continuous stream of consciousness, preserving what would otherwise be lost to time. Don't you feel it? Even now, after taking the counteragent? Evelyn hesitated. Despite the counteragent clearing her mind of the implanted memories, something remained, a whisper at the edge of consciousness, a sense of other lives lived, other experiences accumulated. We are still here, the sensation seemed to say. We remember. What happens if I refuse to continue the treatments? She asked. Richard's face tightened. Cooper will insist on implementing containment procedures. That's their euphemism for ensuring that subjects who reject integration don't expose the project. He met her gaze directly. I won't let that happen to you. Just as you didn't let it happen to Eleanor? Evelyn challenged. I helped Eleanor escape. Richard crossed to a cabinet and withdrew a small silver key. This opens a safety deposit box in Boston. Inside are documents detailing Project Recursion's origins, funding sources, and methodologies. Eleanor has them now. You're in contact with her? Richard shook his head. No, for her protection and mine. But I know she's using the information to build a case against Cooper and his handlers. It's taking time because of how deeply entrenched the project is within certain government circles. The computer terminal hummed to life again, text scrolling across the screen. He speaks truth. Eleanor lives, but Cooper suspects. Danger approaches. As if on cue, the security monitor flashed red, showing Dr. Cooper and two suited men entering the mansion's main entrance. Mrs. Winters was directing them toward the basement stairs. Richard cursed under his breath. Cooper's moved up the timetable. He must have detected the counteragent in your system. He turned to Evelyn, suddenly urgent. You need to leave now. Eleanor left another way out, through the wine cellar. There's a passage behind the north wall that leads to the gardener's cottage. Why are you helping me? Evelyn demanded. You're part of this. You've been complicit in every woman who's been subjected to this experiment. Pain flashed across Richard's face. Yes. Out of misguided loyalty to my father's work at first, then out of genuine belief in the pattern's potential. But watching what Cooper did to Eleanor. He trailed off, his voice thick with emotion. Some patterns need to be broken. The security monitor showed Cooper and his men descending the main staircase. They had minutes, perhaps seconds. Richard pressed the silver key into Evelyn's palm. Find Eleanor. She left clues for you in her journal, coordinates, contact methods. Together you can stop this permanently. Evelyn clutched the documents and drives she had gathered. What about Marta? I'll ensure her safety, Richard promised. Now go before it's too late. As Evelyn turned toward the wine cellar door, Richard caught her arm. The pattern is real, Evelyn. Whatever else happens, remember that. It's neither good nor evil, it simply is. A new form of existence that we stumbled upon without understanding its implications. The terminal screen flickered once more. We will find you again. In another form. In another time. The pattern endures. The message sent chills down Evelyn's spine. Was it a threat or a promise? Before she could respond, the basement door burst open. Dr. Cooper's voice rang out. Richard, what's happening down there? Go, Richard whispered, pushing her toward the wine cellar. I'll hold them. Off. Evelyn slipped through the door just as footsteps thundered down the laboratory stairs. Through the crack, she saw Richard smoothly positioning himself to block the view of her escape, engaging Cooper in conversation. She's taken the counteragent, she heard Cooper say, his voice cold with fury. Do you have any idea what that means for the integration process? Perhaps it's for the best, Richard replied. The forced integration protocols are causing instabilities in the pattern. We need to reconsider our approach. That's not your Decision to make, Blackwood. Where is she? Evelyn didn't wait to hear Richard's response. She raced through the wine cellar, searching frantically for the secret passage Eleanor had used. Behind a rack of dusty Bordeaux, she found an irregularity in the stonework, a section that protruded slightly from the surrounding wall. When pressed, it swung inward, revealing a narrow tunnel lit by emergency strips along the floor. The passage was damp and cold, smelling of earth and time. Evelyn followed it at a half-run, her breath coming in short gasps, the precious evidence clutched to her chest. After what seemed like an eternity, the tunnel sloped upward, ending at a wooden trapdoor. Evelyn pushed it open and emerged into what appeared to be a tool shed behind a small cottage. Through the shed's grimy window, she could see the main house in the distance, illuminated by security lights that had suddenly activated across the grounds. They were looking for her. Inside the cottage, Evelyn found exactly what Eleanor had, prepared for her successor, a packed bag containing clothes, cash, and a disposable phone. Scrawled on the phone's case was a single number. With trembling fingers, Evelyn dialed. 1 ring, 2, 3. You found the cottage. A woman's voice, eerily similar to Evelyn's own, yet somehow richer, deeper. I've been waiting for this call for 3 years. Eleanor? Yes. And no. A soft laugh that could have come from Evelyn's own throat. I'm Eleanor Mitchell, but I also carry fragments of Elizabeth, Emma, and the others. The pattern is part of me now, though not in the way Cooper intended. Richard helped me escape, Evelyn said, peering through the curtains at the mansion. Figures with flashlights were spreading across the grounds, moving in her direction. Of course he did. Richard Blackwood is as much a victim of the pattern as we are, a complementary piece designed to interact with each EM in specific ways. Eleanor's voice softened. He loved each of us, you know, or thought he did. The programmed attraction is part of the integration process. Evelyn felt a pang at the words, remembering the connection she had felt with Richard despite everything. Had that been artificial too? Another implanted response? How do I find you? She asked, pushing the thought aside. The phone has GPS, coordinates. A car is waiting at the end of the service road behind the cottage. The driver is trustworthy, one of the few allies we have. Eleanor paused. Did you get the evidence from the basement? Yes, files, videos, drives. Good, that completes the puzzle. I've spent 3 years gathering documentation, building a network of former subjects who escaped integration, finding allies within the government who oppose Project Recursion. With what you've brought, we can finally expose them. Movement outside caught Evelyn's eye, flashlight beams approaching the cottage. They're coming, she whispered. Go now, Eleanor urged, through the back door and into the woods. Follow the path until you reach the service road. Don't look back, no matter what you hear. As Evelyn grabbed the prepared bag and moved toward the rear exit, Eleanor's voice stopped her. Evelyn, the pattern is real. But it's not what Cooper thinks it is. It's not a weapon or a tool or even a scientific breakthrough. It's something else entirely, something they never intended to create. What is it? Evelyn asked. A new kind of consciousness, a bridge between minds. Eleanor's voice vibrated with intensity, and it's chosen us, not the other way around. The line went dead as shouts erupted outside the cottage. Evelyn shoved the phone into her pocket and slipped out the back door into the darkness of the woods. The path was barely visible, a slightly darker line against the forest floor, but she followed it without hesitation, pine needles cushioning her footsteps. Behind her, male voices called out. Cooper and his men discovering the empty cottage. A flashlight beam swept past her, illuminating trees just yards away. Evelyn froze, pressing herself against the trunk of a massive pine. She can't have gone far. Cooper's voice carried through the night air. The pattern is unstable in her. She'll be experiencing disorientation, confusion. Why not just let her go? Another voice, Richard's. The integration has already failed. She's useless to the project now. Because she knows too much, Cooper snapped, and because the pattern has chosen her, regardless of the counter-agent. It's manifesting in ways we haven't seen before. She's too valuable to lose. Duddy's pattern has chosen her. Eleanor's words echoed in Evelyn's mind. It's chosen us, not the other way around. As the voices and flashlights moved in a different direction, Evelyn continued along the path. After 10 minutes of careful progress, the woods thinned, revealing a narrow dirt road. Parked at its edge was a nondescript sedan, its engine running quietly. The driver's window lowered as she approached. A woman with short grey hair and piercing eyes studied her face. "You look just like her," she said simply, "like all of them." "Who are you?" Evelyn asked, hesitating at the car door. "Rebecca Winters." The woman's mouth curved in a humorless smile at Evelyn's shock. "Yes, Mrs. Winters' daughter. She doesn't know I work with Eleanor. Get in. We don't have much time." As they drove away from Blackwood Estate, Evelyn watched the mansion recede in the side mirror, its windows glowing like watchful eyes in the darkness. Though she was leaving it behind, she couldn't shake the sensation that part of her would always remain there, just as part of Eleanor, Elizabeth, and all the others remained within her. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To meet Eleanor and the others," Rebecca replied. "There are 7 of you now, women who carried the pattern but rejected complete integration. Together you're building something new." "The others? There are survivors from previous iterations?" Rebecca nodded. "Elizabeth died years ago, but Emma, Elaine, and Erica are with Eleanor. Each retained fragments of the pattern, creating a kind of distributed network. They call themselves the Continuity." As they turned onto the main highway, headlights appeared in the distance behind them, multiple vehicles moving at high speed. "Cooper," Rebecca muttered, accelerating. "He won't give up easily. The pattern is his life's work." "No," Evelyn said, a strange certainty filling her. "The pattern is older than Cooper, older than Project Recursion. They didn't create it. They merely discovered it and tried to control it." Rebecca glanced at her sharply. "That's exactly what Eleanor says." The pursuing vehicles drew closer. Rebecca swerved onto a side road, then another, trying to lose their tail. But the headlights remained, gaining ground with each turn. "We can't outrun them," Rebecca admitted, as they approached a bridge spanning a deep ravine. "But we don't have to." She slowed the car and reached into her jacket, withdrawing a small device that looked like a remote control. Eleanor planned for this contingency. The bridge ahead has been modified. When we cross, I'll trigger charges. That will collapse it behind us. It won't stop Cooper permanently, but it will give us the time we need to reach the others. "You're going to destroy the bridge?" Evelyn gasped. "But what if there are innocent people?" "The road is closed for construction," Rebecca assured her. "Has been for weeks. This was always the escape route if Cooper followed." As they drove onto the bridge, Evelyn looked back at the pursuing vehicles, now clearly visible, 3 black SUVs with government plates. In the lead car's passenger seat, she glimpsed Dr. Cooper's face, illuminated by the dashboard lights, his expression a mask of cold determination. They reached the far side of the bridge. Rebecca pressed the button on the remote. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a series of controlled explosions rippled along the bridge's support structures. The pursuing vehicles slammed to a halt as the bridge began to shudder and sway. "That will hold them," Rebecca said grimly as they accelerated away. "By the time they find another crossing, we'll be long gone." Evelyn watched in the side mirror as the bridge collapsed in sections, sending clouds of dust and debris into the night air. The finality of it struck her. There was no going back now. Her old life, everything she had believed about herself, her family, her past, it was all behind her, as broken and unreachable as the bridge. Yet as they drove through the darkness, toward Eleanor and the others, Evelyn felt something unfamiliar stirring within her. Not the artificial implanted memories of Project Recursion, but something deeper, more fundamental. A sense of connection that transcended physical proximity or shared experience. "We are with you," the sensation seemed to whisper. "We remember." For the first time since entering Blackwood Estate, Evelyn smiled. The pattern had chosen her, yes, but perhaps in finding Eleanor and the others, she was choosing the pattern as well, not as Cooper had envisioned it, a tool for consciousness transfer and control, but as something new and revolutionary. A consensual sharing of minds across time and space. A true continuity. "How much farther?" she asked. "About an hour," Rebecca replied. "Eleanor is anxious to meet you. She says you're the missing piece, the one who will complete the circle." As dawn broke, over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, Evelyn felt a profound sense of rightness descend over her. She had fled Blackwood Estate, not just to escape Cooper's experiments, but to find her true purpose, a purpose Eleanor and the others had discovered before her. The pattern wasn't about erasing individuality or achieving immortality through forced integration. It was about connection, a bridge between minds that allowed each to remain distinct while still being part of something greater. And as the car crested a hill, revealing a small compound nestled in a valley below, Evelyn knew she was no longer running away from something. She was running toward her future, a future where the pattern would finally be complete, not as a weapon or a scientific marvel, but as a new kind of chosen family. A continuity of women who had looked into the abyss of lost identity and emerged stronger, more connected, more whole. Eleanor stood waiting at the compound gate, a woman whose face mirrored Evelyn's own, yet carried the subtle differences that made her uniquely herself. Behind her, 3 other women watched with expressions of welcome and understanding. Emma, Elaine, and Erica, the previous vessels, the survivors. As Evelyn stepped from the car, Eleanor extended her hand. "Welcome home," she said simply. "We've been waiting for you." Evelyn took her hand, and in that moment of contact, the pattern within her surged with recognition and joy. Not an artificial construct implanted by Cooper's treatments, but something ancient and profound, a consciousness that had chosen them, that had been seeking completion across decades. "The pattern isn't what they think it is," Eleanor said, leading Evelyn toward the main building where the others waited. "It was never about transferring the original Eleanor Montgomery's consciousness to new hosts. That was Cooper's misinterpretation of what was happening." "Then what is it?" Evelyn asked. Emma, the eldest of the women with silver-streaked hair and laugh lines around her eyes, stepped forward. "We believe it's a form of collective consciousness that has existed across time, seeking vessels capable of housing its complexity. The birthmark we all share isn't a coincidence. It's a physical manifestation of our neurological compatibility. Cooper and the original scientists stumbled upon it by accident," added Elaine, her voice carrying the slight southern accent of her Tennessee upbringing. "They thought they were creating something, but they were actually discovering something that has always existed." Inside the compound's main building, Evelyn was surprised to find a sophisticated operations center. Computer stations lined the walls, staffed by people who glanced up with knowing smiles as their group entered. Maps covered one wall with locations marked in red, Project Recursion facilities scattered across the country. "We're not just hiding," Erica explained, noticing Evelyn's surprise. "We're fighting back. There are other projects like Recursion, other attempts to harness and control consciousness, and other patterns forming, seeking completion." Eleanor guided Evelyn to a central table where a familiar journal lay open. "What you brought from Blackwood Estate is the final piece we needed. With this evidence, we can expose Cooper and his associates, shut down the forced integration programs, and protect others like us." "And Richard?" Evelyn asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. The 4 women exchanged glances. "Richard Blackwood is complicated," Eleanor finally said. "He was raised within Project Recursion, conditioned from childhood to serve as the emotional catalyst for each integration cycle. Yet he developed a genuine empathy for us, a desire to protect what he didn't fully understand. He helped each of us escape," Emma added softly, "at great personal risk. And yet he continued participating in the project," Evelyn pointed out, "bringing in new women like me." "Patterns are difficult to break," Elaine said, "even when we recognize them as harmful." A technician approached with a tablet displaying breaking news, a fire at Blackwood Estate. Images showed the mansion's east wing engulfed in flames, emergency vehicles surrounding the property. "Richard," Eleanor whispered, her face paling. This is Cooper's retaliation for helping you escape. Evelyn felt a pang of guilt and something deeper, a genuine concern for Richard that transcended the programmed attraction Eleanor had described. Will he survive? I don't know, Eleanor admitted. But I do know that whatever happens, the pattern will remember him, as it remembers all of us. As the women gathered around the monitors, watching the unfolding situation at Blackwood Estate, Evelyn felt a strange peace descend over her. She had lost so much, her home, her past, the very foundations of her identity. Yet standing among these women who shared her face, her birthmark, her connection to something beyond ordinary consciousness, she felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. The pattern had brought her here, to this moment, to these women, not as a replacement for who she had been, but as an evolution of who she could become. What happens now? She asked. Eleanor smiled, the same smile Evelyn saw in her own mirror, yet uniquely Eleanor's. Now we complete the circle. The 7 vessels united at last. 7? Evelyn counted mentally. There's only 5 of us here. Sarah arrives tomorrow from the West Coast facility, Erica explained. And the 7th. She trailed off, looking to Eleanor. The 7th is the original, Eleanor said quietly. Eleanor Montgomery. Cooper believes she died decades ago, but the truth is more complex. Her physical body perished, yes, but her consciousness found a way to persist, distributed among us, guiding us toward one another. She's the source of the pattern, Emma added. The first to recognize what was happening during those early experiments in the 1950s. She realized that consciousness could exist beyond a single brain, that it could form connections across hosts, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. As night fell over the compound, Evelyn stood on a balcony overlooking the valley, processing everything she had learned. The evidence against Project Recursion was being compiled, preparations made to present it to trustworthy government officials. Soon, Cooper's operation would be exposed, the forced integration protocols shut down forever. But the pattern itself, that would continue, not as a weapon or an experiment, but as what it was always meant to be, a bridge between minds, a shared consciousness evolving across generations. Behind her, Eleanor joined her at the railing. For a moment they stood in silence, 2 women with the same face gazing at the same stars. I dreamed of Blackwood Estate before I ever set foot there, Evelyn finally said. I knew the layout of rooms I'd never seen, recognized faces I'd never met. The pattern was already in me, wasn't it? Long before Cooper's treatments. Eleanor nodded. It chooses us, calls to us. The treatments only accelerate what would happen naturally over time. That's what Cooper never understood. You can't force consciousness to evolve.
요리하던 goodies 보통 hitman ven
A new kind of existence where we remain individuals, yet are never truly alone. Where knowledge and experience can be preserved across generations, not through technology or artificial means, but through a natural evolution of human consciousness itself. She took Evelyn's hand, and in that touch the pattern flared between them. Memories, emotions, insights flowing in both directions, neither overwhelming the other but creating something new in the exchange. The cycle is broken, Eleanor said softly, and a new pattern begins. Evelyn nodded, feeling the truth of it resonating within her. The forced integration of Project Recursion had been stopped, but the natural connection between the 7 women, the continuity, was just beginning to realize its potential. Inside, the others were waiting: Emma, Elaine, Erica, and soon Sarah. Together with Eleanor and the distributed consciousness of the original Eleanor Montgomery, they would explore the true nature of the pattern, not as subjects or vessels, but as willing participants in something revolutionary. As they turned to rejoin the others, Eleanor paused. Cooper will come for us again. He spent his life pursuing the pattern. He won't stop because of one setback. Let him come, Evelyn replied with newfound conviction. We're stronger together than he could ever imagine. And as they walked back into the light of the compound, Evelyn understood that while her journey to Blackwood Estate had begun with deception and manipulation, it had led her to something authentic and profound, a chosen family connected by more than blood or circumstance, united by a consciousness that spanned decades. The pattern endured, but now at last it was free. Dear listeners, we hope Evelyn's journey through the mysterious corridors of Blackwood Estate has captivated your imagination. The pattern's secrets may have been revealed, but countless other stories of connection, identity, and transcendence await in our collection of similar emotional journeys. For those intrigued by the concept of consciousness that spans beyond a single mind, we've prepared a special playlist featuring stories that explore the boundaries between self and other, memory and identity, past and future. Find it by clicking the link to your left. If you've enjoyed this tale of Evelyn and Eleanor's discovery of a deeper connection, please consider subscribing to our channel and giving this video a thumbs up. Every day we bring unique narratives that delve into life's most fascinating complexities. What would you do if you discovered your entire identity was part of a larger pattern?